All right, back for another episode with Colt Olson, mental skills coordinator for the Colorado Rockies. In today's episode, we're talking about handling failure and poor performances. Um, we had talked off the air about this. A lot of athletes getting really emotional with handling a bad game, a bad shift, or a bad inning, a bad snap, whatever that may be, and how they can kind of emotionally regulate, get back to performing at their best, and not kind of let that build up and turn into a bad game and then a slump. I'm excited to hear your perspective on this and your insights and get those tools out there for athletes and parents.
For sure. Yeah, no, this is a huge one in baseball because baseball is a very long season with a lot of opportunities, and it is just by nature a game of failure, huge failure. So, like in an average MLB season in the big leagues, if you play every day, you're going to have roughly 500 at bats. So, if you're an all star, if you have what's probably going to be a career year for most guys, you're going to fail 350 out of those 500. So that means if you go 150 for 500 at the plate, you're an all-star. That's a 300 batting average. So even if you have the best season of your career, you're going to fail somewhere around 350 times. That's a ton. So when we get baseball players in, new guys, first of all, if you're playing professional baseball, you've probably been a pretty good player most of your life. A lot of these guys haven't had to deal with a ton of failure, at least not consistent failure or failure in a big way. So this is something we have to teach them right away and help them understand this is going to become part of your life. The game is going to keep getting harder. It never gets easier. You're going to see more and more challenges. You're going to see unique challenges. So it's important that you have the right relationship with failure. And we use the word relationship intentionally with that because so often people don't want to have any relationship with it. They think like, no, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to work my way through it or whatever. And that usually works for a little bit, but eventually you need a different tool. You need to be able to shift your perspective. You need to be able to think through things in a different fashion so you can actually come through failure in the right way. You can learn from it and get better as a result because you can. And that's what it should be for, is improvement. So I think, we teach failure. The first way we teach it is we give them this checklist called how to fail like a pro. So there's 3 steps with this, right? The first step is understanding that it is win or learn, not win or lose. Right. So when you eliminate the lose and decide that, hey, I'm either going to win today or I'm going to learn today, it changes the way you look at those bad moments. Because again, failure is just information. If things don't go the way you want in the moment, instead of getting emotional about it, and this is a big piece of it, because emotions are your enemy when it comes to handling failure. If we get emotional, we're going to be all over the place. We'll talk about emotions with the second step, but you eliminate emotion and decide, all right, I'm just going to look objectively at this situation and go, okay, why did I commit those turnovers? Why did I strike out this many times? Why did I make this error in the field? Why did I walk this many hitters? Whatever it is, you just look at it, break it down from a non-emotional, objective perspective, pull the information out, and then decide, okay, here's the information. This is what I'm going to take with me to tomorrow, the next day, and the next day so I can get better. Win or learn, not win or lose. Second, you have to understand that failure is an event and not a person. So this is the emotional piece, right? Because as athletes of all ages, but especially young athletes, when they fail, it feels really personal. When you have a bad day, at the field, whatever, on the ice, on the court, whatever it is, it's easy to leave and think I'm a worse person because I had a bad day today. And it's just because your identity's caught up in this, right? So you think, oh man, I sucked today. I was, 0 for 10 from the field, whatever. I went out to pitch and had 3 walks and 5 earned runs in an inning. Like, I'm a terrible person. And that's never true. Failure is a part of your life. It's not your life. You failed today. You are not a failure. So understanding that it's just an event, it's not a person, is huge. And this, again, detaches you from it and makes it an unemotional event. And it's not that you're not going to be upset about it. You should be upset about it. You should feel that sting a little bit, but you can't decide that you are now less than you were before the game because you had a bad day. You're the same person you'd be if you had a great day. So pull the emotion out of it, distance yourself from it from an identity perspective. You are not your sport. You are not your failure. You failed today. You're not a failure. So that's it. Failure is an event, not a person. That's step 2. And then step 3, if you're going to fail like a pro, you have to be committed to moving on to the next pitch, next rep, next moment, whatever it is. And the best way to do that is to talk to yourself. Talk yourself through it. Because when we fail, again, a lot of times we get emotional and the conversation in our head speeds up. It's important that we choose our words, stay in control of that conversation, and use it to drive us to the next moment. So I usually give like 2 or 3 mantras I think are powerful for this. The first one, and this is a Nick Saban quote: "So what? Now what? You failed. So what? Now what am I going to do?" And I love that because first of all, it kind of minimizes the impact of the failure. So what? You failed. Big deal. It happens to everybody. Now what? And that simple phrase of now what directs your brain to the present moment and makes it go, okay, what's the most important thing in my environment right now? And okay, maybe it's playing defense. If it's baseball, like, hey, if you just struck out, had a bad at bat, what's important now? The now what is you either stand up on the rail in the dugout and be a good teammate, or you get your glove and go play defense. You can't let any of those go. So what now? What's really powerful? Diminish the impact. Give your brain something to think about. The second one, big deal. Next pitch, big deal. Next rep. Again, diminishes the impact. Big deal. Everybody failed. Most people are failing at the same time as you. They're going to fail during the same game. And when they do it, you don't think anything of it. It's no big deal. So deciding for yourself, kind of making fun of it, like, big deal. I failed. Let's move on to the next one. Let's go get this. Same kind of thing as so what now, just a little bit of different phrasing. And the last one I teach guys is start over. Best rep right now. Again, it just reminds you like, hey, let's clean the slate. Let's start over. Treat this as a blank, fresh moment and have our best rep right here. So those are the 3 steps we teach them, right? Win or learn. Failure is an event, not a person. And you have to talk yourself through it and use those mantras. And I think that process for moving through failure is really powerful just because it eliminates the moment where you just wander through it and aren't sure what to make of it, or think again that you suck, you're a bad person, you can't get through this always happens to me. Just that spiral. Having a little system like this is really good for getting through those tough moments.
I agree with that. I think it's important for athletes to take this into their own hands. I think with sports in general, no matter what level you're at, there's a level of pressure that comes with it that is either trickled down from the staff, the coaches, as you get higher levels, management, ownership, all those type of things. But if an athlete could find a way to figure this out on himself, to talk him through these things, it's extremely important. One thing that I try and do is, like you said, I try to tell my athletes, who cares? It's going to happen. You're going to fail a million times, and you're probably not going to remember this one. But if an athlete can find a way to talk themselves off of this, off like that spiraling negative mindset, that's a huge, huge key, because you're going to keep failing, like you said, throughout your entire career, and getting used to that and trying to find ways to mitigate that, because the external pressure is always going to be there. And especially if you want to play professionally or collegiately, those levels, the pressure now comes from different areas. So being able to kind of talk yourself off that ledge, or, handle those, how you're feeling and how those emotions are showing up in your body. And then your performance is going to be huge. So I'm happy that you mentioned all that stuff, and especially the who cares, or the so what now what, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. It's not that big of a deal in the long run, in the grand scheme of things.
No. And even in the moment, right? Like, there's guys in pro baseball, they're so worried about, what people are thinking at the game, or their teammates are thinking, all that. I asked a guy a few days ago, he was worried about it, like, having bad games and kind of riding the emotional roller coaster. And I was like, dude, think about, like, how many of your teammates have bad games every night? And he's like, a handful of them. I'm like, okay, do you remember any of their worst games?
Yep.
He's like,
yeah, that's a good
no.
way of putting it.
He's like, I can't remember. He's like, if you ask me, I can't remember anybody's worst game of the year last year. I'm like, yeah, but you remember all of your okay days. So like, I love the perspective of like, dude, if you were talking to your best friend about the problem you're having, or about the failure you went through, what would you tell them? And almost all the time they're like, I tell them it's no big deal. Just go get it tomorrow. Or like, just go get this rep. It's not a big deal. No one cares. And I love that perspective. And also too, it's like, yeah, there's people watching your games, but if you're at the highest level, you get a ton of people there. They don't remember anything. If you had a bad day, like, nobody's at the game, like, well, I would have had fun at the game tonight, but Danny Perez turned a couple over. Like, nobody's thinking that. Nobody cares about that. They're just having fun, enjoying it. We are so worried about ourselves, and everybody else is so worried about themselves. Like, just minimize all that. Understand it's not a big deal. Commit to moving on to the next one. That's the only way you're going to get better.
Yeah. And that's why it's so helpful to have someone else to help you have that perspective shift, because it helps you realize, it's really not that big of a deal. And you're so consumed by your own world. A lot of athletes are. I was so guilty of it, like that total like spotlight effect of everyone's going to be watching my mistakes and everyone's watching my every move, and like you just get so now in your head about it, and it's just absolutely looking back so ridiculous.
It's
Um,
crazy.
but do you think a lot of that is just a perspective shift, or is a lot of that kind of, the quote unquote like specific mental performance tools of self talk and all that? Or do you think a lot of that kind of just bases on to just shifting your perspective on it all at the end of the day?
I think it's both. I think the self-talk and everything will help you shift your perspective.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Because you do just have to get to that point where you understand like nobody cares more about this than you. Nobody's thinking as much about this as you. So, okay, well, what good does it do you to stew on it? Beyond getting the information out of it, it does nothing. It makes you worse.
Hmm.
Like you're beating yourself down by just sitting there and like steaming because you had a bad at bat or whatever. No one cares. No one's thinking about it. You still have a job to do. So learning to talk yourself through it effectively and then train yourself to adopt that perspective of like, hey, it's not a big deal. No one else is worried about it. Everyone's wrapped up in their own stuff. Why don't I just go do my job right now? That's where the power's at. So you have to have one to get the other, I think.
Yep. Cool. One thing I wanted to talk about, which we had briefly discussed before we got on, was what I'm calling now slow burn failure. I guess I'm going to put it that way. And if you have a
Mm-hmm.
better term, let me know. But um, I think this is coming to light right now just due to college hockey seasons ending, and athletes are finding themselves potentially out of the game or potentially in a new place playing professionally. And there's a lot of turnover right now. And so, where this comes to mind for me is that slow burn failure of like, as a freshman, given a lot of opportunities, let's say, and now junior year did really well, but senior year, new crop of freshmen come into town. I'm all of a sudden maybe not playing as much. Or if you're a professional athlete and maybe you've been playing pro for anywhere of 3 to 10 years, let's say, and you've maybe been the guy for a majority of that, and now you're finding yourself slowly, potentially, maybe on the way out or in a different role. How athletes can kind of manage that slowly watching the tide roll in of potentially their career being over or their role completely shifting, or maybe they're in the highest league or second highest league and they're potentially going to get notched down a couple pegs. How do you suggest athletes kind of manage that or deal with that really, and get themselves either in a better headspace and then eventually a better position? Or yeah, I guess just in a nutshell, how you coach athletes through that process or through that experience?
Yeah, very tough. I think for us, like, I don't know when this one's going to air, but like we just finished spring training. So just like you mentioned, the hockey season is ending. Like, well, baseball season is just starting, but the way baseball works in the landscape of baseball now, it's a lot harder for guys to get jobs. So, like, the minor leagues have shrunk in size now, which, every team had to eliminate like whatever 40 minor league positions, which is a lot. That's a ton. So now we have guys throughout spring training dealing with what you're talking about, where they're starting to see the light. Maybe young guys are coming up and they're like, okay, I'm not going to get promoted. I'm going to get sent back to the team I was on. Maybe I'm going to get released. If I don't get released, I might be stuck down at the complex in Arizona, which essentially means you weren't good enough to make a team, that kind of a thing. So they deal with this, what you're saying, slow burn failure over time. And I think having just had conversations with guys about this, one of the things we ended up discussing a lot was, are you looking to find purpose in what's happening to you right now? Like, are you actually searching for purpose in the situation you're in? Because there is a purpose to the situation you're being put in. There's a reason you're there. There's something to be learned, but it's up to you to take advantage of it. Like, if we have guys who had a decent season last year and they think they're going to get promoted to the next level and they get sent back, the natural reaction is just be frustrated, be angry, think that it's unfair, think the organization's out to get you, they don't understand your talent, they don't like you, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, even if that's true, what can you do about it? And the answer generally is you have two options. You can quit, or you can find a way to get into your situation, find meaning where you are, and grow through it. So I think when slow burn failure gets really bad, it's when people start to lose purpose and they start worrying about things they can't control, like you've talked about with professional hockey. It's the same as pro baseball. You have coaches, front office, a bunch of different people making decisions about you. And when guys start to feel the slow burn failure happening, they start to blame all of those exterior factors. And again, maybe it's true. Even if it is, you can't do anything about it besides play. So it's up to you in that moment to adopt the right perspective, decide to find purpose in whatever your journey is in the moment, and grow through it. And that's a battle. That takes work every single day to decide, like, all right, I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to choose the right attitude. I'm going to choose the right energy level. I'm going to handle failure like a pro. I'm going to go all in on the little tiny details that contribute to success, and I'm going to work my way through it. And that just means at the end of the day, if the game tells me I'm done, I'm done. But I'm not going to be in a position where I leave here bitter and didn't find out what I could be because I just mailed it in early. Like I'm gonna leave no stone unturned. I'm gonna do my work every day. I'm gonna get after it to whatever extent is possible, and know that when and if this day comes, I did what I could. I sold out. I didn't end up where I wanted to be. I wasn't given the path that I liked. My path was my path, but I made the most of it. I think having that perspective, searching for meaning and deciding that you're just going to sell out no matter what it is probably the best way to get through it.
Yeah, I like that because for me, looking back to my experience, the first year when I'd signed out of college, there was zero affiliate, so there wasn't any big club sending guys down. And the second year I was there, or that start of that fall season, um, there was a double affiliates. Now there's two NHL teams sending teams down, and I'm kicking myself for this, and I have no regrets. But like I said, kicking myself for it because of my perspective now, looking back, I'm so worried about how many guys are coming down from both clubs, and it's like I already lost. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's I was distracting myself by shit that was, sorry for lack of a better term, that was completely out of my control. And it completely derailed my focus. And I know I'm not the only one that goes through this stuff because it was kind of a talking point for a couple other guys in the room. Whatever, it was just like writing was on the wall for a lot of us, and it's like, you know, that's all I can think of right now is guys are entering their, first couple pro games in hockey right now. They're ending their college season. If there's any of them out there listening, it's like, who cares? It's going to be an inevitable situation. And the second you start thinking about that stuff, you're going to completely, honestly, not even enjoy the experience that you have the opportunity to play professionally. And you're already going to be in a poor mindset to take on or tackle whatever adversity is going to be coming your way because you're already worried about things that are completely out of your control. And you kind of touch on that with how you, shift that perspective with all that stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, especially in pro sports, it happens all the time in baseball too, because there's, for one big league team, there's five minor league affiliates underneath. And when guys start to get worried about like movements, who's going up, who's coming down, who's staying, we refer to that as playing GM. So when guys start playing GM and they start deciding what the moves are going to be, hey, this guy's going to go here, he's going to come here. What does this mean for us? And then they decide they're like, some guys are angry about it, some guys don't care. But playing GM is poison. And it's poison because it spreads through a locker room or through a clubhouse so fast, and it gets everybody caught up in a bunch of stuff they have zero control over, creates a super emotional environment. It gets a little divisive because some guys get mad at other guys because they might get moved up and they think they don't deserve it. It's a mess. So it'll crush you, it'll crush your teammates. Don't play GM. Don't worry about the moves that are going to be made. Again, at the end of the day, your job is to go perform. That's all you can do. Just go perform, handle your business, be a good teammate. The moves will take care of themselves. But trying to wrestle with that and figure it out and get some sort of control over it, waste of time. It'll never be good. It'll just lead
Mm-hmm.
to anger, frustration, sadness, cynicism, nothing helpful.
Yep. What about the guys that get sent down that you have to, you know, talk to and change their perspective, and maybe they feel bitter about being sent down, that this guy should have been sent down over me, or I did well and I have this on my resume as far as production and yada yada. How do you kind of coach guys through getting out of that mindset? Because that's no good either.
Tough. And those ones are hard, right? I mean, and a lot of the time, the guys will have, the stuff they're talking about is probably some of it's true, right? They'll be right about some of it. And usually when guys are in this situations, it's because they're older, which also makes it harder. But when it happens, same kind of thing. My job is just to help them adopt the right perspective. And again, highlight this idea that the situation you're in essentially affords two choices. You can shut it down, mail it in, and just kind of slowly fizzle out of your career here because you're angry about this. Or, you can take a day or two or three, whatever, probably not more than two, be upset about it, feel this pain, but decide that on the other side of this pain, you're going to switch to production mode and you're going to find purpose in this and grow through it. Because again, you have two choices. You can mail it in, stop, go home, or you can get something out of this, perform your best, and make sure you have no regrets when you leave your career. So that's usually where I try to take the conversation. It's not always easy. Guys are super upset. And the last thing they want to be told is they don't want me to look at them and be like, sorry, dude, you better do something about it. But at the end of the day, that's all there is. So we'll talk through it. I'll let them share the way they feel and everything like that, because that's super important. Again, I never tell people you just need to be a robot and you can't be upset about this. Like, yeah, bro, be upset about it. Feel this thing. But again, on the other side of this, there has to be some growth, some production. And let's find purpose in this and make sure you can finish this season, this series, this, your career, whatever, in a place where you have no regrets and you're doing everything you can do to get the most out of yourself.
Yep, I love it. One thing that I'll never forget that I still think about honestly daily at this point that you told me, I think it's a good way to round out this conversation is, and I don't know if this is verbatim, but own your journey and own your process. I think everyone's got a different story. Everyone's got a different path in which they're, navigating to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve, and to own that and stay focused in that and realize that this is just how it's going to be, and enjoying that process of it all is such a great way of viewing it that I wish I, had. It's like, hey, you're sent down, or hey, like this is the adversity you got to deal with. Who cares? This is part of it. This is part of the journey. It's, you know, um, it's cool. It's a cool part of your story, and yeah, it kind of sucks. But if you look at it that way, it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. At least maybe I'm just, but
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
it's
But it's the truth, right? Your journey is your journey. The way it goes is the way it goes. You don't get to change the hand you're dealt. You just get to play it. So I love that, that was meaningful to you. And it's super important. But that's one of the things we talked about affirmations last episode. And, I do a journaling thing every morning and I put some affirmations at the bottom. And one of them that I have almost every day is I love my journey. I trust my journey because again, I don't always know where it's going to go. I don't know what things are going to look like, but I'm on it. I'm in it. I'm all in and I trust it. So that's a huge piece of growth, huge piece of development.
yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I wrote it down, so I look at it at least once a week, if that. So
Awesome.
but I always
Awesome.
keep it in my head. So, but no, thank you again. Another great episode, and look forward to having you on for more. And appreciate your time as always, Colt.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you.